The Razer Deathstalker V2 Pro and Logitech G915 TKL both fall into a more niche segment of keyboards being low profile, but definitely offer a more unique experience that I think continues to grow in popularity. Today though, we will be putting them head to head so you guys can decide which one will best suit your needs. Both boards sit on the same playing field price-wise, with the Deathstalker just coming in $10 cheaper at $220 versus the G915, which sits at $230. Though both keyboards come in a TKL layout, the G915 does have a bigger footprint with those extra rubber buttons above your F row where you find some extra controls, which the functionality of them is nice to have, but again, it just makes for a slightly larger board overall. Both boards are though very comparable in how thin they are, but the G915 does slightly edge out the Deathstalker, coming in just slightly thinner, although it's very minor and not a big deal unless you just want something as thin as it possibly can get. Despite their very thin frames though, they are both surprisingly sturdy, with them both having an aluminum alloy top plate and plastic bottom housings, although I will say the G915 does feel a bit more sturdy, and that may be due to them also reinforcing that bottom plastic housing with steel, but even when putting a decent amount of pressure on both boards, there was minimal amount of flex in the frames. The Deathstalker and G915 both have rubber feet on the bottom, which hold them nicely in place on your desk, and though they do both sit at very flat angles naturally, which is supposed to be good for your wrists and shoulders, you do get 2 levels of incline adjustment via those flip out legs on both boards if you like to have your keys in a slightly more angled up direction. Both keyboards offer you the ability to be used with the included dongle, which gives you a 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection, which is going to be the fastest of the wireless connection options and best for gaming, but if you want, they both do also have the option of going into that Bluetooth connectivity with either the button on the G915 or the switch on the Deathstalker to get you over into that connectivity mode, which may be more useful for you, especially if you are using this as a travel or just daily use board. But for gaming, again, you'll want to use it with that included dongle. Both keyboards though can be plugged in and will need to be plugged in for charging them, with the Deathstalker using that USB-C port and the G915 still using that micro USB port on the back. The G915 does beat out the Deathstalker on battery life by around 11 hours, getting 40 hours of use when using it with the dongle and the RGB on max brightness, and the Deathstalker getting around 29 hours with that same setup. But if you're fine sacrificing some of the RGB shine, then you can definitely get a great amount out of both boards. That'll last you many days before you need to actually charge it, but overall, the G915 does just have more battery life in comparison to the Deathstalker. Each keyboard does have a built-in idle timers when the RGB dims or it will turn completely off, which can be adjusted in each of the keyboard's respective software. But one thing to note in specific that's a pretty big deal to a lot of people is that the Deathstalker, when it does completely turn off, it takes a few seconds to actually wake back up, versus the G915, which is almost instant, getting even the key press that you use to wake it up and actually inputting that as well. So take that into consideration with these boards as well. Both of these keyboards with their premium prices are oddly enough using ABS low profile keycaps, which seems very weird for, again, the price point they sit at, but I do much prefer the keycaps on the Deathstalker, as even though, yes, they are ABS, Razer is using what they call something new here, their Hyper Guard coating, which gives them fade and scratch resistant, but also gives them a lot more grittiness, feeling more similar to just a double shot PBT keycap in the first place, and also keeps the keycaps looking much cleaner in comparison to the much smoother ones you find on the G915, which are just traps for finger oils really badly, which I find annoying, just makes the board look dirty overall, and that does not happen on the Deathstalker. Underneath those low profile keycaps, you'll find your low profile switch of choice, with the Deathstalker having a choice of either clicky or linear, and the G915 having either a clicky or linear or tactile switch choice. I have the linear switch in both the Deathstalker and G915 for reference though during the sound test. Razer is using their low profile optical switches versus Logitech's mechanical low profile switches, which with the optical ones, of course, it does offer the advantage of a faster, more reliable and longer lasting switch when it is optical, but overall they do perform very similarly with Razer's, just requiring a little less actuation distance hits and actuation force, which can make it better for faster paced games. Another big area where I think Razer switches pull ahead though is the fact that they just have a normal Cherry MX stem, allowing you to switch out those keycaps, unlike on Logitech's board where they have that more unique way where the keycap attaches to the switch, making it nearly impossible to switch out those keycaps, at least not easily, making it more annoying. The stabilizers though on both boards are nothing to write home about, but they aren't the worst, giving a good feeling for both typing and gaming, but definitely have some rattle and wobble present. The RGB is fairly bright on both keyboards, and you're able to easily adjust those effects in each company's respective software, although again, you probably won't always want to have the RGB on full brightness as it does just drastically reduce your battery life. Both keyboards are definitely great in their own right, and each excel in different areas. For me, I like the smaller frame and build of the Deathstalker a bit more, but you do lose out again on having all those dedicated media controls like the G915 has along the top, but I think Razer's keyboard is also more aimed towards the gaming and offers a better experience for it overall with faster switches and that more compact design. It does fall short in the way of battery life though in comparison to the G915 and doesn't have the instant wake up feature when it is asleep, which may be a big deal for some of you guys out there. I do think the keycaps though are substantially better on the Deathstalkers. I can't stand how oily the keycaps get on the G915, just making the board again look very dirty, and along with that, not having those Cherry MX stems in the G915, which the Deathstalker does have, and makes it compatible with other keycaps, which I think is a big bonus. So if I had to edge it out to a keyboard between the two, I'd say the Deathstalker would win in the comparison between these two boards. Just overall, feeling more updated and some better features in areas that I feel are most important. But again, definitely let me know what you guys think you like best between the two boards in the comments down below, and make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video, and check out some of the other reviews on the screen now.